Let's talk about NFTs and the end of capitalism. But I do need to start off with a few disclaimers just before we dive in. So first up, there will be some bad language in this one. I do need to just warn you. Despite what this image implies, I'm not doing this just to be edgy. The bad language is there to make a point. It's kind of unavoidable. There's nothing particularly extreme in there, but just a heads up, if you have any small children, now might be a great time to lead them out of the room. Cool. Okay. Next up, these are my opinions and not the opinions of Thoughtworks. And this is going to be a very opinionated talk. So if you are looking for a balanced technical analysis of the capabilities of NFTs, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get that today. Very, very opinionated. We're going to be getting very, very quickly into politics and philosophy. You probably guessed that from the title, but yeah, just so you know. And I have a lot of opinions on NFTs, as this diagram shows, but we will not be talking about all of them today. In fact, just in the interest of time, there's several things that I need to just explicitly cut out and not talk about. So you might have expected it, but we're actually not going to be talking about the environmental impact of NFTs. I mean, it is terrible. It's really, really bad, but we will not be talking about it. This is partially because it's a complicated topic. It depends on the blockchain being used, on the tech being used. So there's some blockchains that are burning thousands of tons of coal. There's some blockchains which are, destroying thousands of hard disks. It's difficult to kind of keep track of all these things. So in the interest of simplicity, I'm just going to not be talking about the environmental impact today. We are also not going to be talking about the scams. And there are so many scams. So this whole talk came to me in a vision. And as a result, it only took about 2 days for me to write this whole thing. And over the course of those 2 days, I think 5 major NFT scams hit the news. There's everything from the really high-profile rug pulls. There's pump and dump schemes. There's teams that make huge promises and then just disappear. And you're like, well, was that a scam, or did they just? Was it a failure of project management? You've got sleep minting, you've got phishing attacks, you've got theft, you've got attacks on wallets, you've got just artist impersonation. It really is just absolutely terrible and just scams all the way down. But we will not be talking about this today. We're just going to slide neatly past the scams. We're also not going to be talking about something which I think needs a lot more attention, which is the absolutely incomprehensible user experience for almost everything in the crypto and NFT space. I mean, what is going on here? Like, exchange and swap are the same thing. Those are synonyms. Why is it ETH up here and WETH down here? What's USDT? What's a liquidity provider? What's price impact? Is that bad? Should I be concerned about price impact? Why are none of these numbers the same? This is an absolutely horrible user experience. And we do need to talk about the many, many crimes of designers working in the NFT space, but we just don't really have time to do that today. So there's a lot of things we're not going to be talking about. So instead of doing that, let's just dive in and talk about non-fungible tokens, brackets, NFTs. What are they? There's 80 of you in the chat. Zoom has these little reactions. I think you give like a thumbs up or like a yes or a no. So I promise I'm not going to ask you to do this, but how many people here think they could explain what NFTs are? Just go do like a yes or a no. You can do the Zoom. I see a few no's there. We got a few thumbs up. We have some crying, laughing emojis. There is definitely a split here, and there's a little bit of a sampling bias because you all signed up for a talk about NFTs, which is going to bias the selection here a bit. But there's a lot of people saying no. And I've asked this question before in front of very, very technically savvy crowds, and there's a lot of uncertainty. There seems to be some confusion around what NFTs are, what they mean. Something here is difficult to understand. So I think it's important that we kind of start the talk with an exploration of, or an explanation of what NFTs really are. So I spent a bit of time, I searched for NFTs explain and how do NFTs work, what are NFTs, and I found some diagrams, and I think anytime, it seems to me that anytime anyone tries to draw a diagram to explain NFTs, they just make it harder to understand, which, so in principle, all of these diagrams are supposed to be explaining the same process, and yet they all look completely different, which is maybe our first red flag. But before we do move on, I just want to point out this icon that this diagram used to describe creators and artists. Like, that's what they look like. They've all just got berets. It's wonderful. Before we move on from these, so I did a lot of research, and the thing that I found that explained NFTs the best, that helped me understand what NFTs are the best, was this drill tweet. So I did warn you about this, about the language here. So what Drill is offering here is, if you send him $20, he will send you a picture and a special dog dick number, right? Don't lose it, because that's the important part. And what Drill has very cleverly captured here, very cleverly communicated, is that every NFT transaction has two parts, right? So you're getting the piece of art, you're getting the asset, the thing that you could see, but you're also getting a special dog dick number. And this is the important part. This is why he says don't lose it. So it's a very clever tweet here. It's actually captured the essence of NFTs. So look at it like this. Every NFT transaction, you get a piece of art. In this case, let's just assume it's a picture, and you get a number. Now, from the point of view, from the perspective of a digital creator, a digital artist, the picture, this piece of digital art, has some problems. It has some limitations. Specifically, it's not scarce. What we mean by this is it's really easy to copy. I can right-click copy. I can right-click save as. I can just take a screenshot. All of you right now could take a screenshot and have your own perfect copies of these pictures. And because it's not scarce, because it's so easy to make copies of it, it's very hard to sell. Because why would you buy something if you can just Control-C, if you can just make a copy so easily without any loss of quality? So this poses a problem for artists. Difficult to sell something if it's so easy to copy. And this is where the number comes in. So this is where our special dog dick number comes in. So this number, and whenever you hear NFT, non-fungible token, this is the token. This is what you're actually buying. This is the NFT. The picture you might get the picture. That's a little side dish. That's a nice little bonus you might get emailed. But what you're actually buying is this number. And you can think of this number like a certificate of ownership. So anyone can look at this certificate, and they can see, okay, Steve paid this amount of money for this token, for this certificate here. And it's usually stored on a blockchain. So if you don't know what a blockchain is, first of all, I'm so happy for you. Just keep that up. But you can just sort of think of it like a public database. It's just a big public database. What this means is anyone in the world can look up your certificate of ownership, and they could verify that you paid money for that certificate of ownership. It's a public collection, a public database filled with these certificates of ownership. And because each certificate of ownership is verifiable in this public database, and it's unique to you, it's got your name on it, it's very difficult to copy, because I can't copy it and just pretend it's me because it's got your name on it. Because it's hard to copy, it's scarce. And things that are scarce can be sold. It's easier to sell something if it's hard to get a hold of it. And this is really what NFTs, this is the core of what NFTs are doing, is they're taking something that is not scarce, that is to say digital art, something that's really easy to copy, and they're tying them up with something that is very hard to copy. This is the essence of NFTs. We're taking something not scarce and we're finding a way to make it scarce. This is artificial scarcity, and this is not a new idea. This is exactly what you see if you've ever bought a game on one of these, one of the many online platforms. There's nothing really scarce about the bits and the bytes that make up this game. When you buy a game on Steam or Epic Games Store, they don't need to mine new bytes out of the earth. They don't need to pay a new team to create this this game. It's essentially just a copy and paste. Now, there is a marginal cost to sort of sending it across the internet, yes, but that's not really what you're paying for. But by tying the game, by tying access to the game to this account, to your Steam account or your Epic Games account or whatever, what they're doing is they are making it so it's scarce now, because you can only have access to it if you paid for it, if you have the special receipt that shows that you paid money to get it. Same idea, take something that's not scarce and find a way to make it scarce. This is the exact same thing we see anytime you have entered a product key, an activation code, a license key. Same basic idea. The IntelliJ that's on my laptop is no different from the IntelliJ that's on many of your laptops. We could copy and paste it, it would work. But what this system does is it makes it hard to do that. It makes it so it can't just be copied. You need a special scarce key as well to be able to use it. The only difference is NFTs are applying this in a slightly different context that's been hard to apply this to in the past. But this ultimately is what NFTs are doing. It's artificial scarcity. This is exactly what we see when we see food and clothes being destroyed. We have enough clothes to feed people who to clothe people who need clothes. We have enough food to feed people who are hungry. But we destroy them. Companies destroy them because that makes them scarce. By making them scarce, it is harder. It makes it easier to sell. We could feed the hungry, but it is more profitable to not do that. This is the essence of artificial scarcity. In the book, Capitalist Realism, Mark Fisher talks about what it's like living in a capitalist system. He says it's more than an economic system. It's an ideology. It's a kind of ever-present idea that capitalism is the only possible system. It's the only system that could possibly work. There is no alternative. And this idea he calls capitalist realism. He says, capitalist realism is more like a pervasive atmosphere, acting as a kind of invisible barrier constraining our thought and action. The fact that we implicitly often think of capitalism as the only possible system changes how we think. It limits what we think of as possible. This is capitalist realism. This whole book explores the topic in great detail. I recommend reading it. I think it's a very good book. But I think the best way to demonstrate this is to look at science fiction. Think about the last science fiction movie or TV show you watched. Something that portrayed a future for humanity. Was it capitalist? In Avatar, humanity can travel between the stars, can visit fantastical alien worlds, see beautiful alien life, and they're still a working class being exploited by an owning class. There's still corporations exploiting and extracting value from the environment. For all the Avatar imagines, it still imagines capitalism. The Expanse. In the Expanse, humanity has colonized every world in the solar system, and the most powerful entities are still corporations. Marvel imagines a fantastical world. It's based on our own, clearly based on our own. It has hyper-intelligent robots. It has faster than light travel. It has time travel. It has gods. It has magic. It has a glove that you can click your fingers and change the world in impossible ways. And there's still poverty and the threat of poverty and starvation for anyone who doesn't work. Marvel takes the time to imagine a world with literal magic, and it cannot imagine an end to capitalism. The first line in capitalist realism is that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. So why am I bringing this up? Why am I bringing up capitalist realism in a talk about NFTs? It's because of headlines like this. It's because of blogs like this. NFTs are much bigger than an art fad. Here's how they could change the world. What are NFTs and how will they change the world? Crypto will change value, but NFTs, they will change society, and NFTs will change the world. Yes, really. Now, fairly obviously, I searched for NFTs and change the world, and these were just the top 4 results. But it is not hard to find these. There is a huge amount of rhetoric around this idea that NFTs are changing the world. This is a revolution, a paradigm shift. You do not need to look far to find this kind of messaging in the NFT space. My problem with this is it's nonsense. I'm going to give NFTs credit where credit is due. There is exactly one good argument for NFTs, which is that NFTs give artists more ways to sell. When you search for artist, one of the things that auto-completes to is, when you search for starving, one of the things that auto-completes to is artist. This idea of a starving artist, this idea that it is hard to make money, make a living as an artist is a common one, and it's an accurate stereotype. Being an artist is hard. The value of art is subjective. You may put hundreds of hours into a piece of art, and other people may not feel that it is worth that money, that your labor is worth that much. Being an artist is incredibly hard economically, and NFTs do give artists a new way to sell things. And that's all they do. That's all NFTs do. They just give people a new way of commoditizing and selling their art. For all of the bluster here about NFTs changing the world, all of the talk of new freedoms and changes, all of the freedoms being discussed here are freedoms within a brutal free market capitalist system. NFTs give you the power to give you the freedom to commoditize your art in new ways. Yes, which is a freedom, but it's a freedom within a capitalist system. NFTs give you the freedom to sell your art in new ways, to derive value from your art in new ways, which, yes, is a freedom, but it's a freedom within a capitalist system. Not one of these articles, not one of these people has actually thought about stepping outside of that system. Not one of them has actually imagined building a new system. It's almost as if there's some sort of pervasive atmosphere, a kind of invisible barrier constraining their thought and action. I don't know what we'd call that. So I guess one of my main criticisms of NFTs is for all of the bluster here. they fail to imagine a new world. They just imagine capitalism, but with more computers. One new way of selling things. They fail to imagine a new world. But I actually think they're worse than that. I want to go back to this NFT transaction again. You've got the picture, you've got the piece of art, the asset, and you've got the token. Remember that token again. From the point of view of a consumer, this is very interesting, right? Because the art, and I'm going to say something very controversial here, but I'm going to say the art has value. It has some inherent value in it. And I put a little asterisk there because that's a surprisingly complicated or a surprisingly controversial topic. The value of art may be subjective, but we all broadly, as a society, as a human race, seem to agree that art is nice. We like having it around. Most of us, given the choice between a world with art and a world without art, would probably pick the world with art. We'd probably pick the life, the house, the apartment with art over the one without. Art is nice. It has some utility. And the way I sort of think about this, you might even say sort of use value, although again, another sort of controversial statement there. The way I would think about this, the way I would frame this is imagine you were picking through a big pile of free stuff, deciding what you wanted to take home to your house, to your apartment. If you found a piece of art, if you found a painting, there's a decent chance that you would take that home. You would say, oh, hey, this is nice. I like art. I can hang this on my wall. I can enjoy it. I can appreciate this art. It has some value to me, something like utility. But the other side of this equation, the other side of this transaction does not. There is no value here. This is a certificate of ownership. It just says, I paid money to buy this certificate of ownership. That's really all it is. That is an inherently worthless thing, unless we all agree it's not. And this is the paradox here of NFTs, because the thing you're buying has zero utility. The thing you're buying, you can't eat it, you can't burn it for you can't burn it for fuel, you can't do anything of practical use with it. But this is what you're actually buying when you buy an NFT. The paradox of NFTs is NFTs only work if we agree that the thing that has no value actually has value. So imagine for a second that you are the very first person who ever bought an NFT. You've taken money that you could have spent on food, on shelter, on goods, services, whatever you wanted, and you have used that to buy a number. And now you have a number. You have your dog dick number. You have a special certificate of ownership that says you own something. And you look at this and you realize, well, this doesn't actually have any utility. There's nothing I can do there's nothing I can practically do with this. Which means if you need that money again, if you need at some point you get hungry and you actually want to buy some food. I mean, I'm a big fan of food personally. No one's going to buy this from you. This is an entirely valueless object. Unless you can convince people that NFTs are much bigger than an art fad, that they're actually going to change the world. So you publish a blog post, you try and get a few more people interested, right? And a few people read this, a few people think, oh, you're right, actually, this is potentially an amazing revolutionary new thing. So a few more people buy, and then you end up with you've got sort of a small community of potential buyers for your NFTs now. This is nice. This is good. They can all talk with each other. They can kind of sell NFTs between each other. This is nice. But at some point, these same people, the sort of next wave of people, look at their investment and they think, well, what they've just done is they've taken money, useful money that they can exchange for things on a market, and they've essentially converted it into something with absolutely zero value and zero utility outside a tiny group. And this is generally not a fantastic investment strategy. So they realize that if they want to safeguard their investment, if they want to actually, or even potentially get a return on their investment, they need to convince more people that NFTs are valuable. They need to convince more people to sort of buy into this system. So then they publish a few blog posts, they start putting messages on Twitter, they talk to their friends, and eventually they convince kind of another kind of sort of wave of people to come in. And then you sort of end up with this kind of it's kind of a triangle shape here. I guess you could call this some sort of, I guess it's kind of a triangle plan, maybe sort of like a trapezoid plot. If someone can think of a better name for this, please let me know. But whatever you call this, all of the people in this pyramid are financially incentivized to get more people to join, because the more people that join, the more valuable their investment is. The more likely they are to be able to cash out, the more likely they are to make a return on their investment. So every single person here is incentivized to get more people into this system. It's like some sort of scheme. And at some level, every NFT owner needs to promote the idea that ownership is valuable. And this is really ownership in the most abstract sense of the word. Because NFTs are stripping away any useful aspects of ownerships. It's literally just a little certificate that says you own this. By default, that's really all you're getting with an NFT. And this idea, this concept of ownership, is not an altogether positive one. Looking back historically, the feudal system, the enclosure movement, took land that was common, land that was not owned by any one person or any one group, land that could be taken advantage of, land that could be used by anyone, and gave it to owners. What that ownership meant was the power to exclude. It was the power to say, no, this is my land, not yours, so get off. This is my land, so only I can extract value from this. That is historically what the idea of ownership meant. And this idea of exclusionary ownership simply does not make sense in a digital world. It doesn't work in a world of copy and paste. It does not work in a world where you can right-click Save As. So what NFTs are asking us to focus on is just stripping away all of the previously exclusionary parts and just keeping this little core of ownership, asking us to focus on that. When I think about digital spaces, the internet in general, but digital spaces in general as well, they have essentially, for all intents and purposes, solved scarcity. There is obviously a cost to sending things across the internet, yes. But in the context of digital art, we have essentially solved scarcity. We could share digital art. Everyone could enjoy it without taking it away from anyone else. Digital art can be open and shared and enjoyed by anyone. After spending generations solving the problem of scarcity in certain contexts, NFTs ask us to put it back. NFTs ask us to unsolve the problem that we just solved. NFTs ask us to focus on ownership as the most important thing. Ask us to focus on ownership as the thing that matters, something of value that we want to obsess over. So I think that NFTs don't just fail to imagine a new world. I think NFTs force us to cling on to some of the worst ideas from our past. So what is to be done? I'm tempted to leave you with a quote from Ursula Le Guin, who was a science fiction writer who actually did imagine worlds beyond capitalism, actually did imagine societies that might exist in a post-capitalist world, what they might look like, how they might work. And much like Mark Fisher, she said, we live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. But you know what? So did the divine right of kings. And I love this quote. It's an inspiring quote. It reminds us that things can change, that we do have the power to change things. But it's also not particularly actionable. It's not something that we can take forward. What am I going to do with this tomorrow? And as I've sort of been talking about today, and hopefully been showing, NFTs are not really a technology. They're not just one technology. They're really more of an idea. It's an idea that ownership in its most abstract sense is valuable. And even the technology that it's built on is distributed. So there's no pipe of NFTs that we can just seal shut. We can't bring down NFT infrastructure in the same way we can, say, oil and gas infrastructure, just incredibly easily with, bolt cutters and hard hats. Really just incredibly easy to do this. But there are things we can do. So right now, we live in a world where NFTs are a joke. As a little experiment, you can try to find a friend who has never heard of NFTs and explain to them that you bought an NFT. Explain to them that you spent money to buy an entry in a database that proves you paid money to buy the entry in the database. Nobody cares. That is a joke, not because everyone's done the research and they've reached this conclusion after a careful economic analysis of NFTs. It's a joke because it's a joke by default. NFTs are kind of a silly idea, unless we all agree they're not. So don't buy NFTs. There are lots of very good reasons to not buy NFTs, like, as I said, the scams and the environmental impact that I promised I wasn't going to talk about. But every time you buy an NFT, you are voting with your wallet. You are saying, I care about ownership. I care about ownership in its most abstract sense. I care about having a big list of everything that I own. I care about this being a cultural artifact that we focus on. So don't vote for that future. Because NFTs are really more of an idea than a technology, the flip side of this is, if we ignore them, they actually will go away. But I think we can do better than a call to inaction like this is. I think we can do better than these blog posts as well. I think we can do better than just imagining new ways of selling things. We can actually give people the freedom to create things. You can do this in lots of different ways. You can buy art. You don't need a blockchain for this. You don't need NFTs for this. You can do this with cash. You can do this with credit cards. You can barter if you so choose. But do better than that. You can use platforms. Platforms like Patreon have many, many flaws. Platforms like Ampools may be better. These are artist-owned platforms. And full disclosure, I'm not promoting any platform here. But they give us a way of supporting artists. They give us a way of giving an artist a stable stream of income. That stable stream of income represents a freedom from the threat of poverty. That gives them the freedom to create. Do better than that. Support your local artists commune. Build structures, build frameworks, build organizations, build agencies, build countries, build societies that support artists, that give artists the freedom and the support they need to create things. I'm sorry there isn't a silver bullet here. I'm sorry there isn't a big red button we can press to solve to make the world a better place. This takes time and effort, but I think we can do better than just imagining new ways of selling things, new ways of commoditizing art. So I will leave you with a quote from Ursula Le Guin. It's actually the full quote from earlier. She was speaking to a room full of artists, writers specifically, a few years before her death. And she said, I think hard times are coming when we will be wanting the voices of writers who can see alternatives to how we live now and can see through our fear-stricken society and its obsessive technologies to other ways of being, and even imagine some real grounds for hope. Right now, I think we need writers who know the difference between production of a market commodity and the practice of an art. The profit motive is often in conflict with the aims of art. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Power can be resisted and changed by human beings. The name of our beautiful reward is not profit. Its name is freedom. Are we going to build technologies for commoditizing and profiting off art? Or are we going to build systems that give artists the freedom to create? Thanks, that's it, that's the end, sorry. I have a thank you slide, I'll just leave it on this. That's a good quote, I'll leave it here.
Thanks so much, Steve. Give it up for Steve. Nicely
folks.
given, thank you. I see we've already got some questions that have been coming in the chat. If anyone has questions, please go and add those to the chat and we'll get through them. I can read you. The first one is from Kjeld. What is the meaning of ownership in a trustless society? If you do not trust the government to enforce your ownership of your house, what benefit does that NFT give you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there's a couple of parts of that, and I'm going to just strategically ignore some of them. Yes, ownership is an entirely social construct. If I say I own something, that statement is only true if other people agree. I can go to Brandenburger Tor later today and say, "Oh, I own this," and everyone's going to say, "No, you don't." These statements are only as true as everyone else agrees. I don't have a lot of perspective on this idea of trustless societies, though that is one of the problems which blockchain as a technology, as a platform, is trying to solve. The technical problem that blockchain is solving is, how do you have a network with trust even though every individual node you do not trust? As for trustless societies, I don't know, to be very honest. I would hope that along with building a society and a world in which artists have the freedom to create, we also maybe build a bit of trust there. Yeah, I'm not really an expert on trustless societies. Trustless networking. Let's talk about zero trust networks, but I don't have much on societies. I'm very sorry.
Thanks, Steve. All right, Daryl's question. Maybe this is about the presentation. Do all these NFT owners know that you stole their images for this presentation?
They know.
Face.
They've all sent me cease and desists.
Okay, so it's being handled. Good to hear.
My lawyers are on it.
Okay, perfect. Nice. We have a question from F. Should we sell NFTs? I guess from the perspective of the artists, what do you think?
From the perspective of artists, yeah, that's where it actually gets dicey, isn't it? Because undeniably, yes, you can make money off NFTs. You probably won't. I have some bonus slides. If we want, we could dig into them in a bit, showing that the vast majority of artists do not make any money off NFTs. It's kind of exactly like traditional art markets. It's like they've just recreated the exact same system. As a creator, I would argue, please don't. Surely we can do better than that. if you own an NFT, should you cash out of the ecosystem? I also don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I have no idea. I mean, there's going to be an environmental impact to every transaction you make. Honestly, I don't really have solid answers for those questions. I wanted to look at the sort of politics and philosophy, I guess, behind, what does ownership mean and what are you really getting with NFTs and our ability to sort of conceive of different worlds. But I'm not, I don't feel I'm in a good position to give you kind of personal moral advice there. Very sorry to cop out with that particular answer.
All right, Bruno has asked a question. Aren't platforms like Patreon just another form of capitalism? Honest question, and not saying it's per se a bad thing.
Yes, no, absolutely. Platform capitalism, right? So the platforms like platforms like Patreon make a lot of their money from essentially just taking a cut of every transaction that goes through. They're rent seeking. They have many flaws. Yes, this is why I would probably pushed you very generally in the direction of artist-owned platforms, non-profit platforms, or artist commune. As I keep saying, go support your local artist commune. This might be easier if you live in a city like Berlin, but yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. You can see these same sorts of platforms that are just taking cuts out of every transaction now springing up in the NFT space. A lot of NFT games, a lot of NFT marketplaces have the exact same monetization model, have the exact same economic model as platforms like Patreon, which is you get money for every transaction that goes through. It's rent seeking, it's zero value creation. It's you are correct.
Thank you. All right, from Marcus, how about UBI as a silver bullet?
Oof. I don't think I'm going to solve too many major societal challenges today.
Come on.
I have complicated thoughts on UBI. Yes, it offers a safety net. It offers support for people to live the lives that they want to, and actually does potentially free them from the threat of poverty and starvation, which is limiting many people's ability to create and live the lives they want to. That said, there's a lot of very complicated stuff around that. If UBI starts just replacing and essentially privatizing a lot of services and systems that were previously supported by that were previously provided by the state or other structures, that's potentially problematic. What if say the fire department is wiped out, is taken away, but now you have money for UBI. Now you get that extra money goes into UBI. And now you can pay a privatized fire department. Sorry, this is a terrible example, but if it essentially shifts all of these economic decisions onto you, there's some complicated stuff there. Broadly in favor, very broadly in favor, but there's a lot of really complicated stuff there. Maybe I'll do part 2. UBI, complicated thoughts, I guess.
For sure. Okay, thank you so much. All right, the next question is back to selling art from Bjorn. But should we sell art?
Should we sell art? If you live in a capitalist system, you probably don't have much choice in the matter. And you do live in a capitalist system. I would like us to move towards a world where you don't need to. That's kind of my, I guess, my one of the messages here is let's try and build a world where that isn't necessary. We don't actually need to sell things. Should you sell it? I don't know. Are you hungry? Do you need money? Go for it. If you're hungry, yeah, sure. There's also this point that Ursula Le Guin and many other people have made about the profit motive being in conflict with the aims of art. And this is, should you create art purely for selling, essentially commoditize it from day one? Again, I'm going to avoid personal kind of moral judgments and suggestions here. That's something I'm not particularly interested in getting into. if you need food, go for it. Yeah, I'd rather you sell your art than starve. I'm sorry, I can't be. Very fence city today, despite all the rest of this.
Thanks a lot. The next question is from Dr. Maggie. Please give several samples of the best artist platforms. I don't know if that's just expected of you, or maybe this is something that could be crowdsourced in the chat also.
Yeah, I don't have many. I'm very sorry. I have used Ampled in the past, which is an artist-owned platform. As I said, this is full disclosure. I'm not promoting any particular platforms here, and I haven't dug into every single platform's, business models and how they're taking cuts and who exactly they're seeking rent from. I'm sorry. Patreon is popular. Ampled is an artist-owned platform. I really don't know many beyond that, but feel free to, if you have a platform that's good, please put it in the chat.
Thanks a lot. All right, from John, how do taxes work on NFTs? Do I have to pay taxes on the profit on a sale of my NFT?
Oh, that changed really, really recently. So the answer is it depends on the country. I also don't have too many. Yeah, I think the US very recently changed their law, changed tax law that any NFT transaction over, I think it's $10,000, you now need to declare, basically to show that you're not money laundering, because a lot of money laundering happens on NFTs because they're so difficult to track. Largely, they don't. The field of taxing NFTs and digital assets is a really uncharted one. There's people making a lot of countries, a lot of places seem to be trying to address it, but I am really not an expert on that, so I'm sorry, I can't give too much there.
Thank you. All right, the next one comes from David S. What about NFTs in the play to earn environment? Independent ownership on decentralized games where the value is time you put in to earn items or build your character.
So I really hate that, like with a burning passion. Were I to do a part 2 of this, it would be almost entirely about that. So traditionally there have been microtransactions in games. So you buy a game and then you can pay a little bit of extra money to get like an item in the game, right? And this has a lot of really shitty stuff associated with it, like a lot of predatory behavior that really try to like force you to pay money. But it's at least a one-way transaction. I pay money and then I get a thing in the game. Whereas this pay to earn or play to earn approach, I am buying an asset that goes into the game and I can take it out and I can cash out. And if I do really well, maybe I can make some money. What that does is that turns every decision in the game into an economic decision, right? It's bringing this world of economics and constantly thinking, so my decisions in a game that I'm supposed to be having fun at are directly tied to whether or not I can make rent this month, which sounds horrible and incredibly stressful, and I really don't want that. There's also another point here about this platforms, right? So platforms are, platform capitalism, taking a cut of every transaction that goes through. That's how those games make money. These games are incredibly lucrative. So every time you buy an item on their in-game market, they're getting a little cut of that, right? So you, by playing a game, are doing economic activity that is earning a company money. That is positively impacting their bottom line. So essentially, you're doing a job, only the job is completely unregulated. So there's no hours. The game can be as abusive and manipulative as it wants to be, because there's zero regulation, because it's just a game. It's not a job, it's a game. So that sounds horrible on several levels. Also, I maybe question the sort of economic sense behind having an economy based on where like the primary economic activity is playing games. I that seems to be, I don't know, like come on, go for the next crash here. That doesn't seem like a fantastic economic move. I'm not an economist, but that does not seem like a great kind of like a good smart economy move there. So yeah, that sounds horrible. I really dislike that idea.
Thank you. All right, from AdSAF, have you heard of the tragedy of the commons?
Yes. So the tragedy of the commons is a surprisingly complicated one. It's largely misrepresented, and a lot of common there have been several studies. I'll see if I can dig them out. Maybe I'll share them on like Twitter later or something. But there have been a lot of research on commons that have worked really well. And it turns out that when you have a trustful community, when you have shared resources, it is entirely possible that everyone can use those resources in a responsible way. There can be decision-making structures around that. Remember that, that anarchism does not mean a complete removal of structure. It is a removal of unjustified structure. Non-hierarchical systems can still make smart decisions about common resources. So yes, I've heard of tragedy of commons. There are cases where it's happened, absolutely, but this idea that it always happens is not true. That's my take on tragedy of the commons, I guess.
There is a question about clarification on tragedy of the commons. Is this a way of organizing without hierarchy? Just so it's clear.
Okay, so tragedy of the commons is, let's say you've got a village and you've got a common field in the middle, right? No one owns it, it's just a common field, everyone gets to use it. Every villager has a cow or something. They all send the cow to, you know, go graze on the commons. And no one owns this commons. So you know, one villager thinks, well, I might as well get another cow, right? Because there's some extra grass there. I can extract a bit more value from this. And then the next villager does that as well. The next villager does it, because no one's responsible for this central common resource. And the idea of the tragedy of the commons is, if you don't have anyone in control of this, it leads to a tragedy of the commons, right? Where people over extract value, they destroy the commons. And that has happened, yes. Movements like the enclosure movement did arguably increase efficiencies, but actually we have huge numbers of examples of the commons being used very responsibly without a hierarchical system. So the tragedy of the commons is not maybe what you think it is. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Great. All right, the next question from Marcus. Any comments on Varoufakis' view that capitalism has morphed into techno-feudalism?
I was talking about this yesterday with someone. So I like this idea that after the 2008 financial crash, capitalism or specifically kind of neoliberalism kind of ceased being a viable system. It stopped. It just kind of be shambling along in a sort of zombie capitalism state for a while. Techno-feudalism. I question how useful that terminology is, because when I look at a feudal system, this idea of, you know, you've got the king, or you've got the lords, you've got all the serfs working below them. That's essentially just Marx's prediction of what all capitalist systems end up as. Right, is you naturally end up with power being concentrated at the top. The system naturally tends towards monopolies or monopsonies. I mean, yine, I guess, yeah, kind of, but I also question, like, how different is this idea of techno-feudalism from just what capitalism naturally tends towards? but yeah, not opposed to the idea, or not disagreeing with the idea, but yeah.
Thank you. All right, from Andres, do you feel the same way about crypto coins in general?
Somewhat, yes. It is essentially, it has the same, pyramid structure that we talked about, which is that they have they're inherently worthless. They inherently have zero value unless we all agree they are good and valuable and that we want to keep them. So they have the same property of everyone who buys one needs to get other people to join, right? Because the more people join, the safer their investment is. There's obviously the environmental impact stuff. And obviously, so many scams, all the scams. I guess a lot of what I say about NFTs could be applied to cryptocurrency in general. I don't have too much to add there. I guess take, if you replayed my talk and just cut out NFTs and replace it with cryptocurrency, it would mostly work, I guess, like maybe 80%.
Thank you. From John, does NFT art become current art where rich people and influencers get to decide what's good, or rather what's expensive?
Sorry, could you read that again? I
yeah, no worries. Does NFT art become current art where rich people and influencers get to decide what's good or expensive, rather?
Yes. Oh, I'm really glad you said that. Sorry. So I got some bonus slides. Let me find these slides. Right. So I did this really basic research a few days ago. So yesterday, I looked at a very, very popular NFT marketplace. And I saw that they had over 23 million NFTs for sale. And that's just for one day. A lot of those are just like very short sale periods. And over the last day, they've only sold about 19,000, right? Which, and this number is going down. This number is going up. But even if you assume everything stays exactly the same, this represents about 99.9% plus unsold. Which sounds a lot like the current art market, where the vast majority of artists are struggling to make any money. You also have someone sent me this article just this morning, and I was really happy because now I've got some new graphs to show. Someone did some analysis of what the average sale price of a lot of these NFTs are on a popular marketplace, and the vast majority are pennies, are incredibly small, like less than $100, which in many cases isn't even enough to cover fees. A lot of the sales here are having negative return. These people are making a loss. And what's really interesting here is when you read stories about NFTs, this NFT sold for X million dollars. You're hearing stories about the ones up here, but this is in no way representative of the actual market, right? This is what the majority of the market looks like, which is where most artists are struggling to make any money. And you'll see here, this is which collections and which artists are actually making the most money. And again, same thing. It's a tiny number of artists making the vast majority of the money. The vast majority of artists are making nothing or vanishingly small amounts. So if this sounds very similar to all of the criticisms of existing art markets, traditional art markets, it's because it's the exact same system. We've just recreated the exact same system, but it's on a blockchain now. And yes, who defines what makes this one the most popular NFT artist or NFT collection is exactly those things that you said. Luck, marketing. That's what influences. That's what leads to people getting rich. So yeah, if that sounds like traditional art markets, it's because it's the same system that's on the blockchain. Nothing has changed. Good question. Thank you for leading into my bonus slides.
Well, we don't have any more.
That's great. I didn't want to do graphs and slides in my main talk. So thank you.
I was just going to say, if you want to go venture into any of your other slides, we don't have any more questions.
What do I have? I forgot what I have. Mostly, sorry, it's mostly just a bunch of me. People are doing the tungsten cube. This, what do I even add to this? People are buying a tungsten. It's very silly. It's a bunch of stuff I don't want to talk about today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry, I don't have.
oh, no pressure. I'm just, no worries. You can totally ignore me.
Those are all I have. That's all. That's my only addition to the conversation there.
Oh,
I never delete slides. I just moved them to the end. So
okay, nice. Actually, another question did come in from DH, and it is: can artists sell multiple copies of a piece of art? Is that allowed, or is the idea to always have one unique copy?
Yeah, sure, you can do that. Yeah. Blockchain and NFTs, it's a platform. You can do lots and lots of interesting things with the tech. You can use it in lots of different ways. Yes, you can sell multiple copies. You can sell finite numbers of copies, limited number of copies, or just single things. Yeah, you've got the option. Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks everyone for all your questions too. It's been very interesting. Yeah, seeing what they trigger. Yeah. So, and it looks like that's all for now. So Steve, maybe we see a follow-up to this. Let's see, who knows?
We'll see. Part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to just never think about NFTs ever again. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, that also sounds like a good option. Nice. Well, yeah, thank you so much. It was, yeah, a great talk. We learned a lot and it was super interesting. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks for joining. Big thanks to Steve. If you want to unmute yourself to give him a clap, or at least clap emojis I see. So thank you so much.